Welcome back to the podcast. We are super excited about today's episode. I know we say that every single week, and that's because we are every single week excited. Yesterday, inside Mind Her Business, we went through um, a situation with one of the clients who had a conversation with a family member about business, and it did not go exactly the way that she'd wanted it to. And then Marley and I started talking about similar situations that we've had multiple times. We've both been in network marketing forever before coming into the coaching world. And so we've had experience with this multiple times with different people, and we think it's worth talking about. Do you talk to your friends and family about your business? What do you talk about? How do you mention things or bring conversations about your business to light with friends and family? And we're just going to kind of share some personal experience and our thoughts on that, and how maybe you could potentially avoid some disappointment. Um, you can hang on to that confidence that you have when you're really excited about something in your business, and just keep moving forward without letting that potential conversation just take the wind out of your sails completely.
Yeah, I think anyone that started a business knows exactly what we're talking about. The disappointment that comes when you are sharing something that you are so excited about and so passionate about, and you've already probably poured a lot of yourself into. And when their response is, it, like you said, takes the wind out of your sails, it is really crushing. And it can spiral a lot of doubt within you. And then that just sets you down a whole negative path. And especially the reason we were talking about this and thought it was such an important episode is because and I'll share the example in a few minutes. But when this happened to me, my first business, when I was about 21 years old, um, I was validation seeking. I was looking for approval of my parents. And when I shared with them this thing that I was just like over the moon excited for, and the response was sort of like, oh, cool. Yeah. Okay. Just really not into it at all. Because of course, like they didn't get it. It wasn't their thing. They didn't know what I knew. That really crushed my confidence. And I was young. And now, 10 years later, 11 years later, as a business owner, that might be like annoying to have that happen. But I just know, like, I'm confident now. I know what I'm doing. I don't need other people's approval. But I remember so well that feeling of just being so crushed. And that's what came up on the call yesterday, was just being that reminder of, oh, right, when you're new, especially when you're new, it is so disheartening and can really derail you, really derail you. And it can last weeks. And now when I have a struggle, and we've talked about this a lot, it's an hour, it's 10 minutes, it's a quick vent sesh with your business friend, and then you can move on. But
Most Canadian conversation I've ever heard.
what did they say?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
We'll have to keep that in this episode. We just had someone knock on our door, and you heard. We are Canadian through and through. That makes me so happy. Okay, so let's get back to where we left off. So it can be really disheartening. And now, once you're further along in business, you can really kind of let it roll off your shoulders a lot more easily, and you kind of move through those things, those disappointments, those kind of like, they just kind of irk you. But it becomes so much easier when you have boundaries around who you talk to, what you talk to them about, and how much you share. And instead, we're going to share with you where to bring that energy when you're excited to talk about what you've got going on, and just how to avoid that altogether, because it's really not about convincing your family and friends to get it. And that is just like, that is definitely the wrong path to go down, trying to convince people of what you're doing. You'll end up in disagreements, you'll end up arguing, you'll end up really frustrated trying to teach people all the things about what it is that you're doing and why you're doing it. So instead, let's share a little bit about let's start with some of these common things that we've all heard, right? You've gone to your family and somebody has said to you, oh, are you sure that's a good idea right now?
Mm.
Or, oh, are you sure you have enough time for that? Like, as though they know more than you and you haven't thought this through, right? Like, that's so it's so frustrating when you hear that. Have you heard any, Becca?
Well, mine are my specific or my personal examples are not necessarily um it's just frustrating for me. So I have family members who text and call all during my working hours. I'm air quoting if you're not watching the YouTube video, during my working hours. And every day I have to call them back at the end of the day and say, "Hey, I missed your call. I was working." Well, don't you work from home? You can't answer phone calls while in the middle of the day? I am working. Like, let's just pretend that I was at a business working for someone else and I could not answer the phone. That has been, I think, my biggest struggle or challenge in the last 2 or 3 years. But I also have family who's always concerned about the money. Like, are you making enough money? Is it stressful on your family? Are you are you saving enough? Do you have enough? Um, you're not putting everything back into your business, are you? Just really financial concerns and the fact that I can't/won't answer my phone all throughout the day.
Okay, working from home, I experienced this as well when I had some family. I mean, my sister, it's no secret, she moved in down the street from us, and it was really exciting at first. And then it was, Marley works from home. She's available. She's always going to be there. And so this isn't quite on the topic of talking to your family about what you do, but also just on the topic of setting boundaries. I had to start really like saying, "Hey, I'm working," and letting that be, even though, yeah, I could take a break. I could stop working at any time of the day if I'm not in meetings, but I don't want to because I'm working. I don't want to call. I don't want to switch my brain out of here. So that can be a really hard conversation, just to set boundaries about, if you're working from home, having your family and friends take it seriously. And it starts with you taking it seriously and setting the boundary, which can feel really uncomfortable because I was really afraid of upsetting them. I was really afraid of them being offended because I felt like, well, they're right. I could take a break in this moment and call them back.
Yeah.
I could just go for lunch with you any day of the week. That doesn't mean that it's in the best interest of my schedule or my business or where I'm at currently. So, yeah, that can be a conversation about how much you talk to them about what you do in the sense of how much time you have to share with them. And you don't have to explain your schedule. So you don't have to explain to them why you can't call them back. Just simply, I'm working.
Yeah.
Enough.
Well, yesterday in Mind Her Business, one of the members was a little frustrated. I would say frustrated. She was looking at a specific investment in her business and was explaining it to her mom, very excited because this moves her business forward miles from where it is currently. And her mom's first response was, "Oh, is that affordable? Are you going to be able to afford that?" And it is a valid question. Let's just start there. It is an absolutely valid question. And it is a question as a parent that I would probably feel inclined to ask my kids
We're
also,
just a
right?
bunch of hypocrites over here.
I just want to make sure that you've thought in advance, like you're not just living in the moment. And I know that's what most of these conversations typically arise from. This conversation frustrated her and kind of made her pause for a second, like, should I be doing this? Is this the next best step? Can I afford it? When she had already gone through those questions, she had already done the planning, she'd already done the research, she had already done what she needed to do to make sure that this was a sound investment for her business. And so when you are very confident, you are very self assured, and you spill the beans to someone who does not understand or is maybe they're just a lot more cautious than you are. Maybe they plan or process for a very long time before they make decisions. That sometimes can be the case, but it can take the wind out of your sails. It can stop you. It can make you feel like maybe I don't know what I'm doing. Maybe I shouldn't be doing this. I don't feel excited anymore because the person that I was excited to tell didn't sound or feel excited. So, is this something that I should be doing? Should I reconsider? That's hard. That
Yeah.
is a hard place to be.
And let's be honest, because when you are building a business, as I think most of our listeners are in that building stage of getting it off the ground, of creating more sustainability in their businesses, let's talk about what they can do instead so that that doesn't happen, because that is it's so important to protect your energy around this, that you know, until you have that confidence to be able to tell anyone and have them doubt it and not care and let it roll off your shoulders, that's not the reality when you're starting for most people. So one of the things that you can do, and this is why, and this isn't talked about enough in our industry, one of the reasons that coaching or having a community or a network or a business BFF is so key to your success, is because it gives you a place to go with those wins, with those excitements, with that enthusiasm, where you're going to get the response that you're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a fine line, because when you go to someone with something you're excited about, so like a part of your business, hey, I just finally hit this milestone, or I'm doing this next, there's a skill that every entrepreneur needs, which we've talked about a lot on this podcast, which is internal validation, feeling self-assured. But the reality is, you can't just decide that today and be it by this afternoon, right? Like, that's a whole process. So what can you do while you're working towards internal validation and being boundaried around how you feel about what you do, and not being attached to outcomes, and letting, you know, having a sale define how you feel about your level of success, right? That's a whole process. What we're talking about right now is like, so what do you do in the meantime while you're working toward that? And it's going to a coach. It's going into communities of other people who are doing what you're doing. It's being very choosy. If you do have a friend that you want to go to about it, are they someone who's in your industry? Are they someone who has built a business themselves? Are they someone who just is just that kind of person that, regardless if they get it or not, they're just cheering you on,
Mm-hmm.
right? And generally, I'm going to say this generally, our parents aren't those people, because they're worried about us. Like, it's a very special person that can just be excited for someone regardless if they understand it or not. And you know, in our network marketing days, we used to say, don't reach out, reach up. Don't reach out, reach up. What that means is, if you are, so I'm going to use network marketing as the example. You join a company, you're a consultant of some sort, and you have a really hard day. Don't reach out to another consultant on your team or that you know, because they might have also had a really hard day. They might also be stuck where you're stuck. They might also be in that beginning, you know, energy that you're in.
They may lay down and wallow with you, and that's not what you need.
Exactly. They might hop on that pity party with you. And so when you reach up to someone who's been there before, someone who's been through it, you know, they're not going to sit in the trench with you. They're going to guide you through it, and they're going to pull you out of it. So same thing when you're talking about, you know, positive things, not so much frustrations or fears or struggles, but the good stuff. Reach up and then let somebody that's been where you've been give you the kudos and the next step. You know, and continue to cheer you on to keep moving and not stay stagnant in wherever you are right now, or the excitement you're in. They're always going to help you propel. They're always going to help you stay in momentum and not sit where you're at, whether it's good or bad.
Yeah, I think that we're not saying don't share anything with friends and family who are close to you. Hear us. That's not what we're saying. We're not saying keep everything a secret. There are some things that are okay to leave unsaid, or to not, you can be private about your business, is what we're saying. You can keep a lot of it private, and you can share with your friends and family, business is going really well. My business is starting to move. My business has exploded this month. I'm really excited.
I love what I do.
I'm so excited to wake up and do what I do every morning. And I think that is, for me personally, that is a place that I've gotten to. My family knows that this is a business. I am making actual money that goes to my actual family. And it took a long time to get here, though, because in the past, my network marketing businesses were supplemental to my real income. They were supplemental to my teaching income, or I've had lots of jobs, so we'll just stop at teaching. But it was just a way to make a couple extra $100 or $1,000 a month. And I didn't treat it like a business. So they didn't look at it like a business. And I think moving into the online space, that understanding or that belief just transferred until I set boundaries and I talked about this being a real business where I was making legitimate money. Not that network marketing is not legitimate money. That's not what I mean. I'm making more money than I made in network marketing. And I feel like I am equally providing for the family. That's when things started to change for talking about things with my family. Some of my close friends don't understand it at all. And we just don't talk about it because I don't want to convince them that this is, I don't know. I don't want to convince them of anything. And I don't want to have the conversation over and over. It is disheartening. Um, so we just find other fun things to talk about. And we talk about our kids and we talk about our family and how's work? Good. How's work? Good. And
Yeah.
we leave it at that, and I am fine. We are so okay being that way. I think you just have to get into the mindset. There are people you can talk about your business with, good and bad, and there are not people. There are some people that you cannot talk about business with in the way that you would others, and that is okay. You have to decide who those people are. You have to decide. I can talk about my business all day long with my mom now. I can strategize with her. What I do not talk to her about is my next investment because that's when things start to be like, well, are you sure? Have you thought about it? Do you know how much you, all of those questions come up and I become irritated because I feel like I won't tell you how old I am. I'm grown and I have thought about these things before I make a decision. So I think it's just like you said, being choosy, being private. If you want to be private, be private. Have somebody that you can lay it all out on the table with, though, and sift through the good feelings and the feelings that don't feel so good some days.
Yeah, because like, let me be clear. I stopped talking to friends and family about my business unless they asked, and my answers were very much, yes, it's going great. I love what I do. I'm so excited. Yep, we're building right now. Yeah, we're in a big season of travel. We're doing like some very gentle facts. But that does not mean that I was private about what I was doing in my business. I was just private with very specific people because it wasn't serving my energy.
Mm.
And I found myself getting into that convincing energy too often. And then I would feel so insecure afterwards. Like I was just trying to convince them of something or sell them and they're not gonna get it because they don't want to get it. They're not entrepreneurs. And so I would bring all of that energy when I got off of a really exciting meeting or something exciting is happening in my business. I ran to my business buddies. I ran to my mentors and I would tell them and they would reply with all of the like confetti and, singing angels that I was looking for in that moment.
Pop the champagne.
Right. And like that is such a strategy that people forget to utilize because it's so easy to validation seek. It's so easy to look for the approval of people that matter to us, especially our parents, right? Like we're all just somebody's kid at the end of the day.
Right.
And so it's a really, really important fact that your job is to protect your energy and your job is to make sure that the people you are sharing the things that you are so passionate about and the decisions you're making in your businesses or in your lives in general, that you're going to the right energied person in that moment and protecting your energy with the other people. There's nothing wrong with the other people. They're not bad. They're not negative. They just don't get it. And that's okay. That's okay.
Yeah. Before we wrap this up, I want to touch on two things. What if that person is your spouse?
Oh yeah.
And what do we have for you to do? Like what steps do we have for you to take? To the spouse point, I'm going to share, I think I shared this on a podcast a few weeks ago, but I shared a huge milestone with my husband. I was so excited. I was almost jumping up and down, and I was not, but I was very close to jumping up and down. And he looked at me. He was like, "That's great. Don't let it get to your head though." Like 2 years ago, that would have infuriated me. That would have, I mean, I would have probably gone off on him because you just ruined my whole party that I had for myself. I've worked so hard to get here. And I just laughed this time. I was like, I won't, because I know he was raised by two entrepreneurs, and he does not want to be a part of any entrepreneurship whatsoever. And I know that about him, and that's okay. He doesn't want to, and I love it. Like, I've known since I was a kid that I wanted to work for myself in some capacity. And that's okay. I share milestones with him, I share celebrations with him, and I know what not to expect. He's not going to roll out the red carpet for me. He's not going to he's not going to throw the confetti or pop the champagne. I could take him out to dinner and he would be happy about that. But
he is going to cheer you on. Like, he fully supports you in your business.
He 1,000% supports me in my business. He does cheer me on, but he's not going to be like, oh, okay, what are we going to do next? What's your next goal? How are we going to get there? It's just not him. And I'm okay with that because I have people that I can go to who are going to be that way. But I do share things with him. I share exciting things with him. I tell him when it's been a terrible day. Do you want to talk about it? No, I absolutely do not want to talk about it with you.
That's because you're on Voxer with me already.
But I think if it's your spouse or if it's someone who lives in your home with you, it can be significantly harder to get to that point. It may take a little bit more work. What you need to know is their boundaries, like what they're okay with, because now I know my husband he's been offered basically a business in the last 6 months, and he was like, absolutely not. Like, you couldn't pay me to take that business. So I know that about him. He knows that I'm obsessed with business, and we just live happily most days. I share what I need to share with him, to know that, for him to know that what we are doing is working, and that the business is progressing and is moving forward and is helping provide for the family. As long as he knows that, and he knows that I'm happy, he is fine. But it did take a couple years to get to that point, because I wanted to share everything with him. I wanted to go sit on the couch and be like, today, all of these things happened. And his eyes would glaze over and he'd be like, I don't get any of what you just said. Like, is that good? Is that bad? And it would frustrate me.
Yeah.
So I found my people.
Well, I want to share this from two angles. I'll share with you some of the dances that my husband and I have done on that topic. But first, I want to say, as someone who has led women in business for over a decade, I, at one point in my business, felt like I was the cause, not me personally, but like sort of was the cause of divorce. Because there's this phenomenon in our industry, or in the women entrepreneur industry, that some, I don't even know how to word this, so I'm just going to do my best, okay? Some men aren't ready for their women to be dreamers and to achieve, and to, I think sometimes they can feel like they're getting left behind. I also think it can feel threatening to their manhood. I also think some men aren't prepared for their wives to not, be the
Dependent
in line, like they're not the breadwinner now. Suddenly she's making more money. That can be really challenging for some men. And I'm not blaming the men. I just think that is part of, ingrained in all of us. So we're not going to go down that rabbit hole, but I'm just saying I have seen it a lot. And I've seen a lot of marriages really struggle when a woman starts to succeed and he doesn't get it, or he doesn't know how to be on board. And I think that having more boundaries around what you're sharing, how you're sharing it, could potentially have prevented a lot of that. Maybe not. Some people just are who they are, but I have seen that too often for it not to be something that I have really noticed and thought about. The other part of that, and it's so sad to me, because I've seen it where someone is so successful and so good at what they do, but they're being held back because their right-hand person just isn't in their corner, because they don't know how to be. Maybe they're threatened by it, like I said. And there's just a whole dynamic thing there that can be really challenging. So my point on that, and then I'm going to move on, is just that if your partner isn't in your corner, you need to prioritize having conversations about that, getting some help to have those conversations. Maybe it's getting into some therapy, but if your partner isn't in your corner, like I know Becca and I talk about this a lot. We're the lucky ones. Like our partners are so supportive. They get it. They don't get all of it, but they're supportive. And I've always had that. And I just feel for people, for women who are in those scenarios, and men, where their partner doesn't get it, or if you're young and you're like single, still living at your parents' house, and your parents just don't get it. Like, this is what the conversation we're having. This is what we mean about being boundaried, about who you're talking to, and then making sure you have people in your corner that can help you. So I'm going to move on to my experience with my husband. Is that, like I said, he's so supportive. He's always been. I was already a successful entrepreneur when we met, so that helped, I think, a lot. Our struggle that we consistently talk about, we now run multiple businesses, and together we have started multiple businesses together. And so that has been interesting, because I've always been the solopreneur in our house. He has a job, he is runs a business, but he's a manager. And my struggle has been like, he comes to me with problems, whereas I'm a what's possible person. So when I share with him something like, this is, I think, a really great next step, this is something we could potentially do someday, even when I'm just dreaming, like I'm just having a conversation about dreaming, his first go-to is usually like, well, that might be hard because, and that irritates the you know what out of me, and I can't break him of that. And so I've had to learn to accept that about him, and to be gentle with him, because that is, he's an employee. His whole life he's been an employee.
It sounds like he calculates risk.
He does.
And that's okay, because you could use that to your advantage. I'm not saying that you don't, because you guys actually have really good conversations together about things like this. Yes. But if you shift your mindset to, oh, he's poking holes in this so we can make sure it's even better when we start it, that's another way to look at it. But when you're in the moment, you're like, did you just hear what I said? Like, how good this could be?
Yeah, that's like a really annoying way to look at it. But you are right in some sense. He definitely has a more pessimistic attitude towards what's possible. And so anyway, that's our dance. And so we are constantly having conversation. We have very open conversations about all of this. So I know it's no secret to him. But it can be really disheartening when I'm like, let's talk about what's possible. Let's dream a bit. Let's like run through all the options in front of us. Let's get them all out on the table so that we can start, like, then we could start poking holes. But he jumps right to the hole poking without the what's possible first. And it makes it like, it's really hard to move forward when someone isn't in the possibility space enough. Yeah. So anyway, that's our dance. I don't have a lot to say about struggle with him, because he's always been so supportive, and he is still. It's just now that we're doing business together, it's a whole new experience of business, and it's fun and it's exciting, and it's frustrating as hell. So that's the reality of all the things.
Preach. If you are listening to this and you think, I don't have that circle, I don't have those people or that person that I can go to, that's literally what this podcast is for. We would be happy to be your person, to celebrate with you, to pull you out of the trenches when you do feel like you're just wallowing and you're not moving forward. If you have a coach, go to your coach. That's what coaches are for. We shared in a couple episodes prior that coaching is not all rainbows and butterflies. There are some days where your coach is there to pull you up, because you can't do it by yourself. And then get into a community, get into a community of women or entrepreneurs. It doesn't have to be women, who genuinely want everybody to win. And they are there to celebrate with you and to grab you by the arm and walk with you when you are having hard days, because we all know that there are hard days in entrepreneurship. That's never going to change. So if you do not have somebody, if you do not have any of those other options, Marley and I would love to be those people for you. Make sure you are following us on Instagram and just share with us your day-to-day. Share with us what is going on and where you need support, what you need help with. One thing that Marley and I have is a million resources for you. If we don't know how to help you, we know somebody who does know how to help you. So reach out, even if you just want to tell us, how you loved or hated this podcast episode. That's totally okay. Also, just follow us on Instagram and let us be those biz besties with you.
Yeah, we are looking to create a new series over there. The details will be coming very soon, where you'll be able to genuinely submit wins and have us celebrate with you, or questions or things you're working through that you'd like our feedback on, so that we can be those people to more of you and share, because we know that the things we've experienced are, a dime a dozen. We know that these aren't unique problems, and that's why we want to bring attention to it. That's why this podcast is, our goal is to be as open and honest about our experiences and what we see and what we know works and what we know doesn't work, so that you can grow through them and you can have a place to go to feel seen and heard, and with actual action steps on what to do next and how to work through those things. So we will see you over there. We're so excited to bring that to our communities, and we know they're going to be really, really impactful for a lot of business owners.